YouTube, Awesome Writer here. Welcome to my review for King-ohger episode 8. So this episode was the trial by combat between the two brothers, the long-awaited moment, and it was overall a pretty solid episode. Some mixed things, mixed pacing a little bit, but overall a pretty solid episode. I mean, basically we have, the battle royale set up. The other Rangers are kind of discussing it. Blue Ranger's like super amped up about it. He's like, I hate Racles. We got a choice between this annoying villain, or we got a choice between this villain guy and this annoying guy. And the annoying guy is the far lesser of two evils, so he's like, death to Racles, and they're all excited about it. And Yellow's like, wait, you actually want this to happen? And she's like talking about like all the things that aren't good about this. Then you have the Black Ranger, who is very much still not an enigma, but he's very much an interesting character to watch in terms of motivations because, Yellow even addresses to him, like, why are you on Racles' side? And he appears to be working with them for the most part in this episode, but he also has a moment where he goes off on his own. So he's an interesting character to watch just in terms of I'm never quite sure what he's going to do in terms of allegiances. Like, it's interesting because actually you'd always know that he's on the side of himself and his people, but in regards to what he does with other characters, it's interesting to watch. But also, I hate watching him because he's annoying. It's interesting because they come up with this plan to use this fake poison to give to Racles because they know that this SOB is going to use it on his brother to kill him. But it's not really going to kill him. They're switching it out with an anesthetic to fake his death so that they have the person that can control the Zords on their side. And this is done because Yellow is able to confirm that the scorpion poison was this poison that was used to kill her parents when that guy killed them in slow motion, and she could have easily yelled, look out, but didn't, and she failed them, and should, again, feel guilty the rest of her life. But what's funny about this is, so they confirm that, and then they give him the poison, and then later they're like, they have this question of like, did I accidentally give him the real poison? Which is funny because there's a bit of mystery around like, did Black Ranger do that on purpose? Because then he goes off and does something on his own, so I'm curious to see what that is. But also it's like, why was there even a real poison in play? Like, you knew there was as far as I remember, the real poison was never used in this episode. I mean, like, it wasn't meant to be used. Like, there was no, like, they needed to use the fake poison, but there was no reason for them to use the real poison. So why would you even have a vial of the real poison in the same room? Why did you play a shell game with it? Like, there was no need for them to even be switched. It would be different if they were like, okay, here's the fake one, and the real one we're going to use on the villain. Like, that was just kind of weird to me. Then the stuff would be injected actually in a monster that was pretending to be Yanma during the battle, which made it look like Red was sympathizing with a monster, which of course made Peasant Number 1 furious, and he was again flying off the handle with overacting. People have brought up in the previous weeks explaining to me like why he's acting this way and like why Gira acts the way that he does. It's not that I don't understand why they're acting the way they are in character. I just hate the way they're acting. That Toku overacting absolutely grates on my nerves, and I cannot stand it. It's like they suddenly become a cartoon. Kind of like the scene earlier in the episode when, which is something I really liked with Rita, is I talked about last week how it's like, okay, she's all about justice, so it makes sense that she's sort of on Racles' side because he's technically the authority, but I feel like she's a person that would think for herself. And this episode, she shows that, where she's going along with the procedure, but she also questions him because he's like, well, you technically, didn't agree to this truly, this trial by combat. You was under duress with the kids and everything. And so she actually addresses that, which is nice. And she asks Gira, she says, now you need to really think, do you remember anything from your childhood? Were you really kidnapped? Now I want to note here that I am recording this and have watched this before the Racles specials have started to premiere, because there is a mini-series about Racles and his backstory that's starting. And I have not watched it yet. I will be watching it when it comes out and reviewing it. But so I don't know if any of the information or what information is in that in regards to the backstory. But obviously we don't get backstory here. But my point is that, there might be certain things I say where you're like, oh, that was answered in the special. But I haven't watched it yet because primarily it wasn't out yet. But also I thought it would be interesting to review this episode without the context of the special, just because I want to see how it stands without knowing any potential context. Regardless, long-winded preamble. The point is in this scene, I thought we might get a moment where Gira was actually trying to recall his childhood, and we might get a little bit of glimpse more of that backstory. But then he just starts laughing like a Toku cartoon. I was like, damn it! I thought we were going to have a nice scene and unravel more of the mystery. And I just bring that up because that was two cartoon performances that annoyed me. And his laughing in this episode was a total Don Momotaro ripoff. So we have the actual battle royale, of course, as the main part of the episode, where they fight each other starting in the kingdom and then moving over to the classic Toku scenario of getting knocked into a quarry. What's actually really funny, though, is I think it's Racles that hits Gira. When he knocks him into the quarry, you actually see him flying from the battlefield to this, like, quarry rock area, whereas, like, usually you'll see the Toku character get punched and they'll be like, ugh, and the next thing you know, they roll into an area that wasn't anywhere near where they were. This was like the first time I've actually seen them getting flung, and you can see them cross that distance. But it was an overall pretty good fight, pretty good choreography, pretty fun to watch. Gira addresses, like, you know, I wasn't really kidnapped, was I? And he doesn't confirm or deny it. Again, I'm curious to get context from these specials, but it was a very intense scene. Definitely wasn't the best look for Racles in regards to heavily implying he did this on purpose, and the fact that he was probably going to use that poison, or at least implied that he was. In regards to the suit, I really do like the suit. I mean, it's just as simple as a repaint, but I've really been enjoying the King-ohger suits. The way that they shoot the show and everything really does service to them. That being said, I have to agree with people now seeing it more in action that it does look more like a gray suit than it does silver. I even double checked on the wiki, which is just a wiki, but it's still, I guess, classified as a silver, but it definitely leans more towards gray, which isn't necessarily a problem, because if it was actually gray, it's a little bit more unique than just constantly having to have a gold and silver there. But I'm a little disappointed, because even though I like the way the suit looks, I really do, I'm disappointed it's not shinier. It's a little bit more in line with the way the King-ohger suits look. So I remember when the rumors were out about the King-ohger suits, they said they were going to be metallic-y, and they're not really metallic-y, they're more glossy shiny, which is fine. But this one, you know, is kind of more in line with that, but I think that a shiny silver would have looked really cool. You know, because it's kind of nice to have this kind of glossy shine, and the cinematics of the way they shoot things in King-ohger really makes the suits literally shine. And the idea of a more glossy suit for silver here, like we've gotten in the past with certain other gold and silvers, in the way that the series is shot, I think could have made for some beautiful, like, shots and fights with it being a shinier silver. So I'm a little bit disappointed by that. Again, I don't know about the context of the special, but there's, like, very little explanation behind the sword. Like, obviously he's had the sword the whole time, but given what a big deal they initially made about him stealing the Red Ranger's sword, I'm just curious about, like, because I assumed from the initial rumors that this was either a prototype, maybe it is, but like a prototype, or something they had to whip up and it was somehow lesser. And like, I just imagine Racles would like hate having to use this backup version. I'm curious what the context is going to be for the special, but I was kind of hoping for a little more something than just, I've had this the whole time. And they could clear it up next episode. The episode also does end on a nice cliffhanger after, literally, Gira gets thrown off a cliff, and then he survives. I guess they heal him. Their plan worked, but it didn't work. And they're going to fake his death for a while so that they can have him as an ally to, you know, work against Racles, which is an interesting place to be. But then it ends on a cliffhanger because we do have a villain plot this week. And again, they very much feel in the background. It is nice to see them plotting a little bit, which is nice. But they have a monster grow at the very end, and the grasshopper mech shows up. I was going to say that I'm really glad we didn't have a mecha fight this episode. I mean, yes, technically we did get the big action at the very end, but it was just a cliffhanger. But I like when they don't always have to have a mecha fight. Whenever you don't stick to formula, it's always great. Back to formula. That was, I think, a good cliffhanger, a good lead-in for the introduction of that. Didn't make it feel rushed. And again, I like the change in formula with that. Overall, this was a good episode. I would give it a 4 out of 5. There was some good action, good plot development. I like the cliffhanger. Pacing was a little bit mixed, but overall it has had all the things I like about it so far. Like I said, I will be covering the Silver Ranger special. I'll be interested to see how it fleshes things out. I can't help but think, even though it's cool we're getting this, that, like, why can't this just be in the main show? You have almost too many episodes. You got plenty of time to cover this. Like, let's... I don't know, I'll talk about that in the special, but what did you guys think of this week's episode? Let me know in the comments as always. Until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps to ring that bell so you can get notifications for my videos. Dawson Ryder, signing out.